It's Not a Boy. Chapter 3. Our Farm. Part 2. In a deep, dark corner of our full yard, there was a pen that was more like a cage with bars. Not a pen like Dad built for our sheep when they were lambing. He built that out of bales. But oh no, this one had much stronger walls, and they were about 10 bricks deep. And one wall was made of iron bars, so thick that I couldn't get my fingers round them. The iron door was kept tight shut by about 10 massive bolts. And inside this deep, dark cage, Big Billy Bull lived. He snorted and blew smoke and went cross-eyed with anger and bellowed like thunder at being caged in. My dad looked after Billy, and he went in the cage to clean him out and keep him free from germs. I didn't know how he dared go in with our dangerous Big Billy, but he did. We had all kept away when Dad was there, just in case Billy got angry and then got Dad. Sometimes at weekends, my sister Gwendy and me used to play with Terry and Stewie, who were my cousins from next door. Their dad was Uncle Sid, their mum was Auntie Vera, and they lived with Grandma. When nobody was looking, us kids used to go and see Big Billy. We used to tease him, and sometimes Terry threw in a bit of a brick or a bit of a log in the pen. We loved Terry doing this, and he was always doing things that we were too frightened to do, but we liked it all the same. But Billy didn't like it at all, and he got mad, and we stared open-mouthed as he scraped the concrete floor with his foot and went cross-eyed and blew smoke out of his nostrils. We loved to hear his powerful bellow like thunder while we were safe on the other side of our bars. Big Billy was the most powerful animal we had. But we didn't want him for his power. He was even more powerful than Dobbin when he was young, but that isn't what we wanted. No, Big Billy's power was not important. And it was no use anyway, because he couldn't get out, he couldn't do anything, he was in a cage. He couldn't do anything till Dad gave him a cow. I watched Daisy go in with Big Billy, and there was hardly enough room for the two of them in his pen, and they were so squashed up. I could see the whites of Daisy's eyes showing. Then very quickly, Big Billy did the only thing that he could do. He got on Daisy's back, and Dad said he did the business. Then Daisy was let out with a clanging and crashing of bolts. Then it was Doris's turn, and then Dolores, and so on. There was always plenty of business for Big Billy to do. After that, Daisy and the rest were in calf. And after a bit of time, I saw Daisy have her baby in our full yard. She was mooing all night, and when I stood on our bedroom windowsill and looked out, I could see that there were 2 white feet sticking out of her backside. Then, at last, a sloppy calf dropped out of her, and Daisy licked it clean. They looked lovely together. But then, our calf was taken away from Daisy. "Ma'am! Ma'am!" shouted Daisy's calf from her black wooden pen in our calf shed. "Moo! Moo!" shouted Daisy with the whites of her eyes showing, but nobody took any notice. You see, after Daisy had her calf, she would make more milk. And as you know, the more milk we had, the bigger was our milk cheque. So Daisy's calf was not allowed any of his mother's milk, not even the very first milk. This was special milk, and it was full of natural medicines for Daisy's little calf, which it did not get. But we couldn't sell this first milk because it was yellow and lumpy, and it must not go in our pure, white, smooth milk. So us kids ate it. Mum made a lumpy pie for us, and it was quite good to eat. It would have been good for our calves and protected them from disease, but they didn't need it because we could give them medicines nowadays. I sometimes thought that the medicine could be like my teething powder and could poison them. But I needn't have worried, because our calves were well and grew stronger and stronger every day on their powdered milk mixed with water. But even though our calves were strong, I was sure that they missed their mums. Daisy's calf just stood there on spindly legs in his dark wooden pen, shouting "Ma" most of the day. And I was sorry for him, and I often went to see him, and I held his bucket while he drank his watery milk. He licked my hand with his big pink tongue, and I rubbed the rough, shiny hair on his black and white head. Then suddenly Daisy's calf was taken to Hull Market and was sold because he was a boy. On our farm, we liked our baby calves to be girls. With humans, it was the other way round. We would have been able to keep Daisy's calf if it had been a girl, because when it grew up, it could have joined our milking herd. But he was not a girl, and we did not want another bull. Big Billy could easily cope with his jobs. And so our baby boy calves had to be sold, and Dad said that they sometimes went abroad to be eaten. I thought that Daisy would miss her little calf then even more, but Dad said she'd probably forgotten it. Out of sight, out of mind, he said, and he said it again when Dobbin went away. A big lorry drew up in our yard, and we had to go down our lane to fetch him. I loved going for Dobbin. His cart was in hoss pasture with him, and Dad got the trailer and put reins on Dobbin and fastened him to the shafts. Dobbin looked at us with his big brown eyes and chewed a bit of grass. Then Dad and me sat with our legs dangling over the front of the cart trailer, and Dad held the reins. I wished that I could hold the reins, but I wasn't strong enough. Dobbin wasn't strong enough either. Not because he had been poisoned like me, but because he was very old. He had to stop for a rest every now and again. He thought he had all the time in the world, but he hadn't. Our farm was changing fast. "Walk on," Dad shouted, and Dobbin slowly walked on, right up our lane and into our yard. "Whoa!" shouted Dad, and Dobbin stood still. Then something awful happened. Dad uncoupled the cart, and Dobbin had to go up a ramp and into that lorry. I saw Dobbin turn to look at us before the doors were slammed shut. The whites of his eyes were showing in terror, but he didn't know where he was going. The lorry rumbled off, and Dobbin was on his way to his death, to the knacker's yard. I watched sadly as the lorry chugged further up our lane, and then, at the same time, I saw another new tractor hurtling down our lane, spattering the knacker's yard lorry with mud. Uncle Sid was driving, and Terry was sitting on the mudguard, waving and laughing as they bounced along. Our second tractor was called Blue Bottle. It was blue, and our other red one was called Red Herring. They were both jokes. Red Herring was after the horse that went backwards, and Blue Bottle was after the blue bottle flies that we killed when they tried to spread germs. The two tractors raced along all day long, pulling implements in our fields. They were fast so that we could get more and more crops quicker and quicker. Dobbin's old cart with the shafts was chopped up for firewood. We wouldn't need that anymore now we had tractors. Big Billy was getting ready for a change because Dad was taking him to a show. First, Dad put a ring in his nose. I don't know how he did it, but he did, while Billy bellowed like thunder. Then he was washed, and Big Billy was black and white and shining. You could see all his marks, clear and clean. They were just like a map, and the map was taking him to a wonderful agricultural show. Come on, you daft beggar, shouted Dad, and then he told Billy off and took him to his first agricultural show. And when he came home, Billy went back to his cage, and he snorted smoke and bellowed again, but this time with pride. You see, he got a rosette. He got second prize and a silver rosette to prove it. Well, after that, he went to lots of shows and won heaps of rosettes. One day he would get first prize and bring home a gold rosette. We just knew he would. My dad got a big picture frame and put all the rosettes behind the glass and hung it in our cowshed, just to remind our cows how lucky they were to have Billy Bob. But then we started to get some problems, and they had to be solved, and they were even harder than solving the problem of the horse that walked backwards.